talked a little bit about why we're here, right? We've prepared a brief presentation. It's going to take us 15, 20 minutes to get through, and we're going to try not to get too geeky on this presentation, okay? No promises, but we get pretty excited about this, so stop me if you feel I'm getting carried away. Yeah. But we're here to talk about living your best life with CBD. It's a buzzword we hear a lot in the market. More specifically, medical cannabis and the benefits that we can derive for that. So with me today is Kathleen Mckinnon. Kathleen, you want to share a little bit about your background?
I come from a medical educational background. I taught in the public schools for a couple of years when my kids were really little. I was a dental hygienist for about 10 years or so. I started, before I started my family, working with doctors, doing medical coding and billing, things like that. So kind of been in the medical field, I feel like, my entire life. I started in medical cannabis right when it became medical here in Massachusetts back in 2013, before there were any dispensaries, before there was, anywhere to purchase your cannabis. And really we focused on education. And that's the biggest thing, is education. We find that with education, we're breaking down those hurdles, and that's kind of what we're here to do. So I have my own company now. We are a woman-owned company. Rebecca is my business partner. We've been doing this for a few years now. We have doctors and nurse practitioners that work with us, and we educate and certify into the medical cannabis program here in Massachusetts and a few other states.
So I am the founder and CEO of Resinate. I guess doctor's office, and I'm kind of patient zero. So you can see by my background here, I was diagnosed with renal cell carcinoma in 2014, which was a form of kidney cancer. I went through that process at a pretty young age, which was a little bit unusual. And I had the unfortunate displeasure of really kind of getting close and personal with the opiates and how the opioid epidemic has really come to light. And as somebody who's never really, I've always tried to take decent care of myself as best I can. But as I kind of went through this process, I realized this isn't, I understood a lot better how people could go down the wrong path with opiates and how difficult it is sometimes to even tell your own doctors, like, hey, I don't want this, and is there, and to look for alternatives. So I had that in 2014, and I used cannabis through this process. Fortunately, I've been in remission this whole time, but for me, I've gone through the experience, so I can speak to people about all the phases of cancer and how that, from the diagnosis through the process itself and then through recovery. A lot of people don't understand it's not just about our physical well-being, it's also about our mental well-being, right? Our mental health. And I've also used it for a number of other ailments. I've had neck and back issues, arthritis from sports back in the day, things of that nature. And through this process, I've kind of come from a position of being somewhat skeptical at times about how cannabis could actually work, to being that patient and going, wow, like this is really powerful, and we need to get this information out to the street and get people educated on this product. So that's a little bit of the background. And what I like to do before I get started is just kind of by a show of hands, has anyone here consumed cannabis in the last year? Okay. Well, we know you have. All right, last month? Yeah? Anybody high now? All right, that's my joke, but nobody puts up their hands. You ruined my joke. All right, thank you. I don't have a lot of good jokes, right? But I like to ask you, so many people are like, it was me. I'm like, yeah, so you consume. So that's a little bit of the background. That's why I'm so passionate about what I do in this industry and the discussion. And now I want to kind of turn the page a little bit and talk about, why does cannabis work? Why does it work in the body? Back in 1992, the medical community discovered that everyone has what they call an endocannabinoid system. And we have these receptors in the body. These receptors are, and Kathleen will comment a little bit more about these, but these receptors are what receive these cannabinoids into the body and help your body to experience a better outcome from the use of cannabis. And Kathleen, you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. So your body is actually, as Pete said, built to receive cannabis. We have receptors that are called CB1 and CB2 receptors. They're found in the peripheral nervous system, they're found in our organs, they're found in our brain, and they're there to regulate the body. So what does regulate the body mean? Keep it even, right? If your blood pressure is high, it's going to help to bring it down a little bit. If you're not eating, it's going to help to make you a little bit hungry. If you're full of anxiety, it's going to help to calm you down a little bit. So it kind of brings you to homeostasis. That's the main purpose of the endocannabinoid system within our body, is to bring balance to the body. And it does that by regulating mood, appetite, pain, memory, and sleep cycles, right? One of the biggest things with cannabis, as you know, people are calling it a drug, the United States has it classified as a narcotic. You'll never die from an overdose of cannabis. And that's mainly because there are no receptors that suppress your breathing or your heart rate. So where other drugs like opiates, benzodiazepines can do that, cannabis will never do that. That's not to say you can't take too much, but you'll never die from an overdose. And there are ways to combat that if you take too much, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But this is the base of what our bodies are meant to do, receiving cannabinoids from cannabis, which are called phytocannabinoids, and then also cannabinoids, endocannabinoids within our body. There's two of them in our body that help to regulate as well.
And it's important to kind of mention it at this step that everybody has the system, and everyone's system is unique. And part of the challenge that we go through day in, day out in working with patients is getting them to try certain products that help them get to their outcomes. Meaning you may try a product that you come to us and say, listen, I'm having problems with my stomach, my digestive tract, I'm having problems with sleep. What can we try? And we may try the same product on everyone in the room and we have a 50% success rate, and we have to try another product for the other half. That's why cannabis sometimes requires a commitment. It requires you to be an advocate. While the benefits of consuming this all-natural product certainly outweigh opioids, and I'm not saying the success of the opioids, but taking something that's more natural and more organic is many times preferred by all of us, right? But we have to recognize that it may take a couple of times to figure out what products get us to our desired outcome. And that's what we care about most, and I think that's kind of the misconception when people walk into a dispensary. It's like, well, I feel like I was sold. We don't want to sell anybody. We want to get everyone to the point that they're comfortable with what they're consuming and they're getting the desired effect. And it's a slow and low type of process that we try to put everyone through. So if we can move to the next one, Nidia. So why? So you have this endocannabinoid system. We all have it. So why does cannabis work? Right? So we've uncovered that the cannabis plant is filled with these cannabinoids. And today we're around 150 cannabinoids that we've learned about that are present in many cannabis plants. And just to start there, we've heard about a number of the popular ones, right? So we've heard of THC. Yeah, we know what that does. So that's the Cheech and Chong, and right? We all know what THC does, right? But there's so much more. We're learning about CBD now. And we were talking earlier about CBD gummies, and they're out in the market, and we can buy CBD. And why would we do that? Well, CBD, we're learning, has unbelievable medical benefits. We're learning that it can help reduce cancer metastasis. So for patients like me who had cancer and may look to reduce the risk of that happening again, CBD is highly desirable, even if it's just ongoing maintenance, that I can consume and try to. It's not going to guarantee that cancer may not return, but it is going to help prevent cancer metastasis. We're learning about CBG, which has incredible benefits for your stomach and digestive system. We're learning about CBN, which is a great alternative to drugs like melatonin to help with sleep. So when people come in and they talk to us and they say, geez, we have all these conditions, we're getting to the point as an industry where we can begin pinpointing certain products and saying, this is the direction that we want to go in. And maybe it's something that doesn't have THC, right? Some people may say, I don't want anything with THC. However, it is important that we understand that the plant has so many of these cannabinoids that can provide medical benefits. And in addition to the cannabinoids, we have what we call terpenes. And I'll tell you, again, a lot of my studies have been around Well, you know, we've studied epilepsy, and we know today that we have 3 drugs that have received FDA approval that have cannabis as a foundation. One of them is to help with the nausea associated with chemotherapy. The second we know is helping treat children with epilepsy. Okay? The third is we know with Alzheimer's patients. It's helping to break down the plaques that form as a result of Alzheimer's disease. And that's just the beginning. So we know that we're moving in a direction where legalization is on the horizon, and we know that the medical benefits are there. We had a study that was conducted that's been ongoing in Boston today around pancreatic cancer. And the results of that study have showed that those that have consumed CBD with certain terpenes, okay, in the plant, that they've helped to extend life in pancreatic cancer patients. So some powerful information that's coming out. And, you know, I kind of digress, but what is a terpene? Like, once upon a time, if you've ever smelled cannabis, you may have opened the container and it may have smelled a little funny, right? Has anyone done that? Don't worry, we brought samples for you to smell, so we're going to have some fun with that a little later, all right? But these terpenes are the flavonoids in the plant. And what we've learned is that they have medical benefits, and you can see, like pinene, the smell of pine, right? Who would think that that smell, right, would make up a terpene in a plant that would help with memory and have antibacterial properties? But they do. Linalool, beta-carotene. We've treated patients with CPRS, fibromyalgia, where those terpenes have been the foundation of products that we've recommended, and we've helped patients to feel better. I mean, that's really the magic and the fun of what we do on an ongoing basis. But what we know from cannabis is it's these 2 components of the plant that, when put together, deliver significant medical outcomes as well as other recreational outcomes as well. Okay? So we can go to the next slide. Maestro? All right. So we talk about this, and I appreciate you sharing that story about CBD gummies, right? And we're going to talk a little bit about that in a moment. But the one thing, when we consider using cannabis, we talk a lot about this entourage effect. And the entourage effect is that basic foundation that we're using all of the cannabinoids and terpenes in the plant. And when used together, they deliver the best outcomes or a higher degree of effectiveness of outcomes. And what that means is we could isolate. You could buy a CBD gummy out on the market. And we could create a CBD gummy using CBD from the cannabis plant, THC and other elements, and that product would have a higher degree of success than, say, a pure CBD gummy. We're learning that it's because of this entourage effect, and that when you're consuming products that have the full spectrum of the plant in them, that they deliver greater medical benefits. And I'm sure Kathleen can add a little bit more to that as well. But I like the analogy of the cake metaphor, or the cookie metaphor.
Yeah, absolutely. So with the entourage effect, as Pete was saying, all of the cannabinoids, or most of the cannabinoids, many of the cannabinoids together with those terpenes really pack a powerful punch. If you're just going to use CBD, it's not going to have the same effect that you desire as having them all together, like Pete said. So we like to say the cake metaphor, right? So you have your eggs, your flour, your butter, your sugar. They're all edible. You can eat them all. But how good is taking a bite of butter or, you know, a spoonful of flour? You put it all together, you bake that cake, you have that outcome of a delicious cake. That's where you're going to have, you know, the taste. It's going to be delicious. Same thing with cannabis. All together, they work the best. You get the best bang for your buck and the best outcome. And it doesn't have to be a lot. One, you know, a very small amount of THC mixed in with the CBD and maybe some other cannabinoids is really going to make that CBD more powerful and more absorbed by the body as well.
Cool, cool. The risks and benefits. So it's easy, you know, we've attended a lot of these events, and when we talk about it, we've had a lot of great comments, and a lot of people say, you speak so highly of the plant. And it's true, we do, because we've been down the path and we've used it for different medical ailments and we've had success with it. But we would be remiss to say that there aren't certain risks, and in order to be responsible, we need everybody to understand what those risks are. When you consume products with THC, you do run the risk of being sedated, a little bit of dizziness, and the way we like to kind of parallel that is if you were to take certain drugs or like painkillers, let's say like a Vicodin or a Percocet, you're going to have those effects that come from an opiate. When you're consuming THC, you may have these types of effects, but it's coming from the natural part of the plant rather than a chemically formed product. Dry mouth and eyes, it's true. You may like that cookie a lot better after you've consumed some of the cannabis. So as an appetite accelerant, it works. And while I joke on that, I can also tell you the number of times that I've dealt with cancer patients that needed to eat after heavy doses of chemotherapy and radiation, and we could not get them to eat until we were able to get them to take an edible to accelerate that appetite. And I have more families that thank me for that even if it was able to get them another month with their loved ones as they're going through that process, those types of experiences are invaluable. So while we can kind of joke about the dry mouth and eyes, it's a real medical condition that's important to mention. And at the same time, some of these products can be used to decelerate an appetite. So it's not just to enhance. And then again, it's funny to think that, because for years we've always been taught, well, consumer going to get dry mouth or you're going to want to eat. And sometimes, no, it's the opposite. We can actually depress an appetite. You may experience an elevated heart rate, decreased blood pressure. One of the reasons why I love bringing Kathleen into these conversations in her firm is because many of us are on some sort of prescription medicine now. And the balance between going to a dispensary, we always recommend for those that are looking for cannabis for an outcome, we can talk to you about it all day long, but going to speak to a nurse practitioner or a doctor to say, hey, I'm on a Coumadin. What's going to be the impact of that drug if I consume this product? That's where you can go get that help. And we strongly suggest that all of our patients that do that have those conversations with the certifying doctors. It's really important. Disorientation, potential for misuse. So happy, again, I'm going to pick on you all day today, I'm sorry, but you confessed, I'm kidding. But the potential for misuse. I had a friend who went out to an event in California and was being taught the value of edibles. And it's really disappointing for me to hear the story, but they left and the professor handed out samples to people that had never consumed before. Well, he didn't consume anything. He was just there to learn, but he handed it to another person in the room, and that person ate the whole thing, and it was extremely high dose of cannabis. We never want those things to happen. And little things that we do over there, you'll see that with some of the things that we'll go through later, like with pill schedules and things of that nature. We want people to understand you got to consume everything responsibly. So we always map out a course that's, like I said, slow and low. We want people to start on a very slow level, little bits, graduate up, and get very comfortable with what they're doing. But misuse has risks, so making sure that wherever you go, whether it's the Resinate dispensary or any dispensary, it's important that you're being properly coached on the use, and the dosing of all of the products. Inhaling smoke, we have to say, while we haven't had case studies that have linked cannabis use to cancer-causing agents, any kind of inhalation will carry that warning. So we need people to understand that if you are going to smoke or bring something into your lungs, that inhalation can be harmful to your health. And again, the interaction with prescription drugs is one of the things that's of most importance to us in the short term. And like I said, we've seen them all. There are hundreds of drugs now that we know can interact uniquely with cannabis, and we need to understand many times with our patients, okay, what are you consuming? So for many of our seniors, and I want to be clear, like you may walk into a dispensary today and buy something, and that's perfectly okay. But it's also okay to reach out to a certifying doctor like Kathleen's office and say, hey, Kathleen, I'm on this. What would you recommend? And we can provide that proper advice. So,
how many of our physicians have this information? Would you say a percentage?
Close.
Don't see it at all.
There are about roughly 300 certifying physicians in Massachusetts. You have to take a course about cannabis before you can become certified through the state to recommend cannabis to patients. We have 6 doctors and nurse practitioners that work directly with us. They've been doing this for many, many years. A lot of times PCPs, other doctors, specialists, they're getting federal funding in their practices. They're taking insurances. This is not anything yet that is FDA approved, federally legal. So they are very constricted on what they can recommend and any certifications that they can do through the state. So that's why they have certification places like alternative wellness centers where patients can come, people can come and meet with a doctor or nurse practitioner, get certified into the program, get education, and then it's an open door policy throughout the year. You're able to call, either meet with an educator, speak to the doctor or nurse practitioner if you have any questions. And then the dispensaries also have teams in there if they have medical sales where you can talk to somebody about their product as well. So there's a lot of really good support once you become a medical patient in Massachusetts.
Yeah. So we want to talk a little bit about the benefits?
Sure. So Peter talked about some of the risks, right? And so all of those things he talked about, those adverse effects, that's a sign that your dose is too high. And one of the good things is we can regulate that, right? So your dose is too high, and so are you. We'll fix that. Some of the benefits is focus. People with ADHD or some people that just aren't able to focus find that cannabis works really good for that. Pain relief. One of the top certifying conditions here in Massachusetts is chronic pain. So studies have been out. We see it all the time. Pain relief is definitely one of the benefits. Anxiety relief. I like to say that my kids are alive today because of cannabis. Not because they had anything wrong with them, but I used it and didn't kill them. So there's anxiety relief. Sleep aid, that CBN cannabinoid, really good for sleep. Nausea relief, that's why it works so well for cancer patients going through chemo. It relaxes tight muscles. Even those, tight wads that you see walking around, you're like, they need something. Their whole body's too tight, right? Reduces inflammation. CBD is really good at reducing inflammation, and that's where that entourage effect comes in. You want a little more in there, but CBD is really good for that. Appetite enhancement, and then appetite decreasement as well. So there's different cannabinoids that you can dial in or look for either one of those. And then a replacement or an addition to prescription drugs. And one of the biggest things as seniors is the prescription drugs. So
yeah, we've had a great deal of success even recently with some of the new products coming out around, again, your stomach health and digestive tract, those with Crohn's. We've had products that have had a high degree of success treating Crohn's patients. And again, every day we're learning a little bit more about this, but gastritis, I've had a number of friends, family, patients that have come in and said, I'm really looking for something, like I've had it with this, I might have to continue with this drug my whole life, but do you have anything else I can just try? And I mean, the case studies are definitely there to support it. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I'd like to point out too about CBD, which is extremely important, and I say this all the time, is that it helps to prevent neuropathy associated with chemotherapy for those going through cancer. Mm-hmm. So
diabetes as well.
Diabetes as well. So I'm constantly promoting when the onset of neuropathy is setting in, let's get that dosing in, let's get it up, and let's get people on programs to prevent it, because when too much time elapses, there's no guarantee that we can bring it back. There have been cases where people have, but again, everybody's body is unique. So for us, like I said, or even for you being here, and I appreciate that you are, this is a process. And getting to learn a little bit about this and the benefits, it starts here, and then it goes forward in being an advocate for your own health, speaking to your PCP, and expressing that this is a path I want to go down. I'd like to explore this, working with a certifying doctor, talking to them about how can we do this, and then ultimately choosing a dispensary that you feel is going to have your best interests in mind, and unfortunately, like doctors' offices, we all have people that we prefer to work with. At the end of the day, it's all about finding the right company that can speak to you at your level about the challenges that you're facing.
Right. Because, we don't want somebody to have a bad experience and never come back. Because it is a trial and error when we first start. Much like when you go to the doctors and they start you on a new prescription, right? They give you a prescription, they say, okay, I want to see you back in 2 weeks or 30 days, 4 weeks. Let's see how this is doing. Let's see if we need to adjust the dose. Same type of situation, right? Let's see what products work best. Let's see what your dose is. And one of the good things about this is you can layer it too. With the senior population, and even I'm seeing younger now, these people that are coming in, we've seen people on so many pharmaceuticals that they are turning into zombies. And I mean, it's so true, With seniors, we find that the median prescription amount that they're on is 5. So they're on, at any given time, 5 different prescriptions for whatever. It could be blood pressure. It could be aches and pains. It could be, blood thinners. It could be cholesterol, anything. But we're finding that a lot of times cannabis can help them come off of those medications or take less of those medications. It's less taxing on the body. All these medications that are prescribed are processed through the liver. And that puts a lot of, work on your liver. One of the things that we like to talk about, we like to say how this can affect you, age, weight, food and water intake, and your mindset, right? When you have cannabis, right? Or any of these prescriptions. That's all you have to take that into effect. They're not going to give you, so if you need to take an opiate, they're going to try to give you the least amount of opiate that they can to start off with. It's the same thing with cannabis, right? Cannabis can replace those opioid pain relievers. It can replace that anxiety medication. We've had people come off their antidepressants, their Klonopins, their sedatives, and they're so much happier. They're so much happier. We see this year after year. They come back and they've improved. They've gotten improvement with the cannabis rather than the medications that they've been on for years. They're happier. They're able to, one of the biggest memories that I have when I was working in the clinics and seeing patients and educating patients, I had this woman come in and she was in tears. She was renewing. She said, I went out for ice cream with my grandchildren the other day. And I was like, that's great. And I'm thinking, I take my grandkids out for ice cream. She goes, no, you don't understand. I have not been able to leave my house, to be in a car for that long, to be with my grandkids. She said, it was the best thing that could have happened. And she was in tears. And that really hit me. To think that it's something that I take absolutely for granted, that this person was unable to do that. But with the help of cannabis, is now able to spend time with her grandkids. And it was something that really, really has always stuck with me, has always really made me feel good, because our main purpose is helping people and getting them to that point where they feel good enough that they can be the best that they can be. And that's not going to be the same for everybody, but the best we can do. So some of the CBD drug interactions, CBD, even though it is sold over the counter in a lot of places, you do have to watch out what you're taking it with, when you're taking it, and how much you're taking. There are certain prescription medications so if your doctor ever told you don't take it with grapefruit juice or wait 2 hours before you take anything else, same thing. Because CBD is processed when you take those gummies and things like that, that's processed through the liver. Any edible CBD is processed through the liver. If you're taking medication that's being processed through the liver and you take the CBD at the same time, you're going to have a buildup in the liver. Your liver's going to be too busy, and what happens is it's not going to be able to break down that medication, that prescription medication, and you can have a buildup in your liver and get toxicity over time. So you really want to be aware of any prescription drugs that you're taking when you're taking CBD or any edibles that's going to be processed the same way through the body. Inhalation is a little different. That does not go through the liver. Topicals are different. That doesn't get processed. But anything edible, you really want to be aware of what you're taking, especially if you're taking other prescription medications. So
Yeah, the other part is it can sometimes accelerate the effects of the prescription meds, and it can also do the reverse. It can decelerate it. So timing around the medicine is also very important. So again, looking for a certain type of outcome, and you're taking a prescription drug, we've been able to determine if it's taken typically outside of a 2-hour time frame where your body's been able to process the material completely, that we can get to the state that we want to get to. But again, we can say that to you all day long. It's really about that collaboration with your PCP and, again, your certifying doctors to make sure that you're doing the right thing. Cool. This is the fun one. Okay, so why are we here, right? Now, we can go to the gas station. We can buy CBD. We can go to Bed Bath & Beyond. Sometimes in Walgreens. We call it all gas station CBD. The reason that we call it that is because understand in the state of Massachusetts, all of the products that we make are state tested through an independent testing lab. We are required by law to put products out in the market that have the ingredients in them. All of these other companies that are selling them now are not regulated. They do not have those requirements. Someone can irresponsibly put CBD on a label and sell something to you at twice the price. Unfortunately, it happens. We're in this interested state within the market right now where, yes, the state of Massachusetts has legalized CBD. And yes, it's out there, but there are still what we categorize as bad actors that are out in the business. And anyone that is building products, making products for sale, lotions, topicals, gummies, they should be able to provide a certificate of authenticity that shows you that that was tested and in fact had the material in it. And that's why we always recommend that if anyone's going to go down this path and explore cannabis, CBD, THC, go to a dispensary. There are products there that won't get you high, that won't make you feel intoxicated. There are products there that will guarantee to have the material in it. Because too often what's unfortunate, and we've seen this over the years, is people will go to a store and they say, oh, look, and a lot of gas stations, look, here's CBD, I'm going to take it home, and they put it on their hands and they get nothing from it. The truth is it was just a lotion. So now, the patients are looking at it saying, well, I'm not going to try this again. And that's why we are regulated. We cannot do that. Dispensaries can't do that. We have to say exactly how many milligrams are in each product of each one of these cannabinoids. So if you go there, you can trust that you're getting what's stated in the package. Now, I'll also take that one step further in saying, also understand that you may consume something the first time that says, well, this is what they told me I should take. And it may not have that immediate effect. The one thing that we know about CBD and many of these cannabinoids is it takes effect in the body much like an amoxicillin. It's going to take maybe 2, maybe 3 weeks. And I'll give you a great example of that. At the age of 35, they wanted me to have a fusion on my neck because I had disc damage in my neck. And I refused to have the surgery at 35. I didn't want to deal with that at that age. So I took a CBD THC product, and it took me 45 days of sleeping like hell to finally have the pain subside. I had nerve damage in my fingertips, numbness. It's all gone. Today, I never had to have the fusion. I don't consume it every single day. I took it for 45 days straight. The pain subsided. And now if I have a flare-up, like a disc or a neck issue, I'll go back and I'll revisit that same regime and get me to the place that I want to be. But it took a time commitment. It took products for me to get there, and then I had the desired outcome. So it's really important to know that if you're going to explore this type of solution, CBD or THC, for your own health, you need to make sure that you're getting it from either a dispensary who is by law regulated to make sure the products have what you need, or I'll go as far as saying that if there is another trusted source, because I don't want all the CBD companies out there to hate me, right? But if there's another trusted source of someone selling it, they should be able to provide a test certificate that says what you're buying has CBD in it. And if they can do that, then we can trust that that material works. And then the next thing that we've got to do is measure, did it work over a period of time? So a lot of this, with cannabis use in any form, it's not always an immediate success. It's going to take time.
So what are you doing in that interim?
So when it goes away, it's
You're waiting that month and a half.
So,
Give an example.
and I wouldn't say it would be a month and a half. Like
Oh,
he's
for like-
talking
for my
like his
example?
extreme, yeah. Like
yeah.
he-
I had
An average example.
Yeah, so like it all depends upon the ailment. I mean, so like we've treated people with knee pain, hip pain. With mine, it was to Kathleen's point, at the point where surgical intervention was being recommended, and I didn't want it, so it was very painful. But with Tylenol and with that, it took me 45 days to get there. But it doesn't mean that that's always going to be the case. And I don't want to suggest that. There are certain ailments where you could come in and this happens, it drives me crazy. Some people have immediate success. I have a patient that we treated who has an inflammation disorder. So we put this patient on a regimen of a tincture and a gummy product, a tincture during the day and a gummy product at night. And the reason why I did that is I wanted something to treat the activity during the day, and I wanted something at night while the body was in recovery to get her to where she needed to be. So the first day, she took the tincture under her tongue. And I called her, and I said, how did you do? She said, great. My husband and I cleaned the house all day. It's great. I feel good. I said, okay. How did it go on Saturday? She said, well, I didn't take anything on Saturday. I said, well, did you take the gummy? No. I felt so good off the tincture, I didn't take anything else, which drives me crazy because I'm like, no, there's a reason why I recommended this particular regimen. So a lot of times, and that's what I mean, with everybody who comes in, it's going to be something a little bit different. And we've got to think about, okay, how do we take somebody, introduce this, get them, get it going, and how do we adjust dosage over time to get them to their outcome? My story was a very low dose. I didn't increase my dosage at any time in 45 days. I had the basic amount. I do believe that if I had increased my dosage, I probably would have had a quicker success. But this was 6 years ago, right? And frankly, we know so much more now, and there's so much more product availability now than there was 6 years ago.
Right.
So
you can layer products as well. So that's
that's
one of the things that
Yeah.
we also recommend is, so if you have body aches, right, you can use a topical. It's like, like using Bengay. And that works great for pain. You can also use a gummy to sleep, or if it's during the day, you can use a tincture, you can use a vape pen. So you can use the products one on top of the other. Obviously, you wouldn't want to take a bunch of gummies, a vape pen, all at once. But throughout the day, you can definitely do that. The topicals, you don't ever feel any psychoactive effect from. So you could use that all day long. Those are great. I use those all the time. Tinctures, one of our doctors has a great regimen. And there's a new company out, TreeWorks, I believe. We're going to be doing some education with our doctors with them. We're setting up a whole education class. They're using other additives, other cannabinoids, to get the desired effect for different reasons. So if you want to relax, if you want to sleep, if you need some energy, they formulate their tinctures for that. So there's so many products, and as Pete said, the best place to get them is at a dispensary, whether or not it's CBD or CBD with THC, because they have to be tested through an independent laboratory. So everything that's in that has to be put on a label. CBD can come from many different places. It can say CBD on a label in the store, but that could come from seeds. It could come from hemp stalks.
Yeah.
With the products that you're purchasing in the dispensaries, it's actually the cannabis CBD plant that's being grown and harvested. So you're getting a better quality. You know where it's coming from. You know that it's been tested. We like to say just because you can buy it in a gas station doesn't mean you should.
Doesn't mean you should.
So
yeah, it's really interesting. But again, it comes back to everyone's bodies differently. Mm-hmm. Some people, sometimes like I share this information with people, and I almost hope that they don't have that immediate result, but it does happen. Just because it's more effective if taken in time and it gets in the system, and it's now in your body over a period of time versus just that instant effect. But at the same time, the goal isn't to just say you have to take cannabis like an opiate the rest of your life either. Like in my example, I took what I needed to for 45 days, and now I just take it intermittently whenever I have a flare-up for my neck, or even on my lower back. If I have that issue, I'll treat it that way. So to me, I'd rather have something like that I could take at night, or products that I could take during the day that aren't going to make you high. Many of them do not have THC, like I said. So there is a solution for most people. And it's also to suggest, and again, I'd be remiss if I didn't share this, is that, going down this path, you've got to be an advocate for yourself. And you also have to be prepared that there may be a time where you suggest it hasn't worked. Like it hasn't gotten me to where it needed to be. We don't want to oversell this or make you think that it's going to be the answer to all problems, but it is a very natural, organic way, and it is something worth exploring if you're dealing with any of these issues. Mm-hmm. We had a patient come in the other day, hasn't slept in 4 days, and she hit us on our social media and said, I haven't slept in days. I said, all right, just come to the store, let's talk about it. And I thought, well, this should be relatively easy. We have great products. And she walked in the store and said, I take 40 milligrams of melatonin daily. And I went, okay, you know what, we're going off the reservation on this one. Every product I thought I was going to recommend her, I had to throw out. I said, now we've got something different we've got to deal with. Now we've got to try to wean you off, or at least reduce the amount of dependency that you have on melatonin to get you to your state. First night we had a product that we gave her the recommendation, she slept for 5.5 hours. So she didn't get to a full night's rest, but that was a significant improvement. And since then, this was a product that was a little bit, like I said, unconventional, that I wouldn't recommend for sleep, but we went a different direction and it worked. So every time someone's situation is different, their body's going to be a little different. The goal is, we talk about it, we sit down, we coach you through it, get you on a good program, and then we monitor it. Because like I said, I don't want people to just buy products for the sake of buying products. Let's get you what works for you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could tell you story after story, but it's, I'll tell you too, the misconception is when I started this business and we started delivering to patients, my first week I delivered to patients. And a lot of people think, like when they think about cannabis, they think, oh, it's all this recreational and these young kids are doing it. And I can tell you that is so untrue. I deal with more patients, people that are dealing with anxiety, serious, debilitating conditions. And when we show up, it's how do you do this? And when you see that they're getting at least an element of relief from it, that's where, we get a lot of satisfaction in what we do. It's more often the case. Shall we go on? Maestro?
Yeah, I wasn't sure.
Yeah, no, we're all good.
The
I
medical
apologize.
cannabis certification. Yes. So the difference, people are like, okay, so why do I need to even go see a doctor or get my medical card? I can just go into any dispensary. And that's true, you can. One of the differences here in Massachusetts is, especially with the senior population that have other ailments, you have access to a doctor or a nurse practitioner all year long, right? That's the biggest benefit of that. Secondly, you don't have to pay tax here in Massachusetts on medical cannabis. The recreational is minimum 20%, and then it goes up from there depending on the city or town. There's also a wider selection of products to choose from as a medical patient, larger doses. So recreational, everything has to be in 5 milligram increments, which is where we recommend even patients start with that low and slow amount. But once you find your dose, you're able to purchase, more dosing, more cannabis at a time. And then you've got access to the medical teams at the dispensaries. So they have people who are actually working there that are a little bit more knowledgeable about some of the products with the medical patients that can help recommend or guide you as well. And then you can also use this in some other states that have reciprocity, such as Maine, Rhode Island, Puerto Rico, California, Nevada, Michigan, Oklahoma, and many, a few other states across the country.
Okay, so let's look at some cannabis, shall we? We have a full selection over here, and we'd like to grab some gloves.
Have any of you guys ever seen, like, what types have you seen? Have you seen edibles? Have you seen tinctures, or even the flower at all? It's called flower now. It used to be called bud or, weed. We used to break out the double album cover and de-seed it. They don't have seeds anymore. Don't have to worry about that. But have you guys ever seen any of the forms of it? No? Anybody?
Have we?
Yeah.
So we have a number of them, and what's interesting to mention, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, is that with many of these products, we can change the time it takes for it to set in. We have an edible product that may take 10 to 20 minutes to begin feeling the effects, and then we have other products that could take as long as 2 hours. The biggest thing about taking an edible product, and it would still even apply for like a CBD gummy, is we take it with food. A little bit of food, a little bit of fat, okay? Because it all gets processed through the liver. If we don't, then that means that the dosage that we're taking, our bodies may only realize 25, 50% of the dosage that's on the package. But when taken with food, you will increase the amount of dosage that your body is experiencing. So these are some of the products. And I'll talk a little bit about them, and you can feel free to look at the packaging. I'm going to talk a little bit about each. But one of them, I'm going to start with the chocolate. I like to start with chocolates. And the reason for that is because we produce a milk, a dark, and a white. But many times we'll have patients that come to us. Sleep is a huge thing. I would say most of our patients, even if they're dealing with other conditions, have sleep as central to the problem. So many times we'll recommend something like a dark chocolate bar that has different cannabinoids in it. Could be THC, could be CBG, CBN for that sleep aid, can be CBD. We put the cannabinoids in the bar, and the reason why I like that product for that reason is because if sleep is the challenge, then I'll tell someone to take it maybe an hour before bed or at bedtime, knowing that it may take anywhere from an hour to 2 hours to set in. But when it does, it can keep someone asleep. But I have other patients that come in, and my wife will tell you, I've recently been one of these. I'll fall asleep for that hour, and then I'm ready to go again. Like, don't ask me why. Sleep schedules change, right? So now you have certain people that'll come out and say, well, I've had this product, I go to sleep, I'm up in an hour. Pete, after that, it'll take me 2 hours to get back to sleep, but then I stay asleep. So we might change the type of edible product that we recommend for that. And that's why I show you a fruit chew product. The fruit chew product that I show you, typically the onset's going to be a little bit less. The duration's going to be a little less. A chocolate product that has a little bit more fat in it will have a longer onset, but sometimes a longer duration. So even these food products, knowing how to take them and why to take them based upon what your issue is important. Now, and that's why I say, like, it's not enough to just walk into a dispensary. You want to be able to walk in and talk to somebody on even, it could be somebody recreationally, but more so on the medical side, that can coach you through this. We have, for the most part, as an industry, I think we found a way to put cannabis in just about everything. So we have mints that are here as well. And all of these, like I said, will have a slightly different onset and a slightly different duration. Many times I'll tell someone who's interested in getting involved that let's do it a couple hours before you go to bed the first time. Why? Because I want you to, in that short amount of time, I want you to feel the effects, and I want you to be comfortable with those effects, and then let yourself fall asleep. And as Kathleen pointed out, many times it's about, when someone comes in, it's about recommending one product. Let's start with one small dose. Let's see how that goes. Sometimes it'll be 1/2 a dose. I'll tell somebody to take half a fruit chew just to get someone comfortable. And that's why we have all these different products. Many times they have different dosing levels. So one may have 5 milligrams in it. Another one might have 25. Another one might have 2.5. They're all different. But I share a lot of these products, like the ones that I'm putting in front of you, because I believe in wellness, and I lean towards products that have a higher degree of health, pure chocolates, not artificial coating. A lot of, a lot of products out there may have an artificial coating. Our bodies don't digest that as well as a real chocolate. So we have those. The fruit chews, again, they're vegan, they're gluten-free, they're not gelatin-based, they're pectin-based. We also have gelatin-based fruit chews as well. But the products that I like to recommend here, I like to lean a little bit more to the healthier side. But just an edible of something that you could eat. I mean, in addition to that, there are oils, vegetable oils, olive oils that you can buy and make your own foods. There are barbecue sauces, ketchups, hot pepper sauce. You name it, it's pretty much in everything.
Right. It doesn't necessarily have to be a sugary substance, especially
Correct.
people with diabetes that
Can't have sugar.
Yeah, that can't have sugar. And these are great for neuropathy. Neuropathy is definitely a product of diabetes. So finding the more savory products that are available for some people can help as well. And then, as Pete was saying, you take this before bed, but you wake up in the middle of the night. Well, you might want to have a vape pen handy with an indica in it that you can take a hit of, and it'll help you get right back to sleep again. And I know Nydia's got some tinctures and vape pens, so
I like to
many
share
different products.
these as well. Sorry, Kathleen,
Yeah.
but I like to share these as well. This is a tincture. And a tincture, there are many different products out in the market, several different brands. This one is called Dream, and it's intended to help you fall asleep. And on that, as you can tell, they're child resistant, so a little difficult to open. But on the medicine droppers, they have the dosing right on the medicine dropper. So if, for many people that, again, when we start slow and low, we tell them, let's start with a very minimum dose. Try 0.25 milliliters and take that before bed, and let's see how that works. And if it works, great, we stay with that dose. We don't need to increase it. However, if it's not working or someone's not staying asleep, we can ask them to increase the dose. But many of these products are all organic, all natural. They're great products to consume. And something like this, you could take it a number of different ways. Tinctures can be taken underneath the tongue, but most times they can be just put in a cup of tea, coffee, well, not a coffee before bed, but maybe a nice chamomile tea, a drink. It could be put in on top of food, so it can be taken in any number of ways. And many of them come with different flavors. Some are very earthy, very plant-based, and it's important to know that. Many people really like the plant-based type of flavors, and others will carry like a mint flavor to it. But this one is Dream, and there are other ones that are energy, so it'll give you that little pickup during the day. All different types of outcomes. And again, we've seen a ton of these come into the market. And the nice thing, too, about a lot of these products, again, I'm from Massachusetts, born and raised here in Central Mass. Mancuso No Wax, my insurance company. They'll thank me for that later, Tony. So to me, I like to support the local companies. And all of these companies, I'm not going to say all of them are from Massachusetts, but all of them are required to produce the products under law here in the state of Massachusetts. So all of these come with test results. You can ask to see them. All of them have the labeling on the packaging. So like I said, there's no surprises. So that's a tincture. This is a very popular one that we start a lot of patients off of people that are starting just because we can control the dosing so specifically and get people started, and again, in that slow and low process. Any questions on this? Do we want to, feel free if you'd like to read it or pass it around.
So how much does a bottle of that cost?
They certainly do range. I mean, some of them can be upwards to $45, $50. And just so you know, depending upon assuming the average minimum dose, something like that could carry you 30 to 60 days. Okay, so that's how long. And with the fruit chews and the edibles, many of those have 100 milligrams in them, on the chocolate bar, the mints, and the fruit chews. Actually, I believe those are 50. So we would recommend someone to start off at like a half a fruit chew to start and see how they feel. So 20 of those, if they get to one serving, it's going to be 20 days.
Do they also range on where you buy it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, every dispensary is going to have a different product lineup for different reasons. Everyone operates a little bit differently. It's not to suggest good, bad, or indifferent. I could tell you our position is that we look to carry products that, number one, are quality focused, but we also look for products that satisfy every budget as well. Because sometimes it's about making sure that this is affordable, right? So we have products in all categories. We must have 30 different types of fruit juice, I kid you not, that are different flavors and different effects inside of our building. And we carry them for different reasons. Some of them have additional nutraceuticals in them. So we might have a fruit chew that also has melatonin in it, or it might have vitamin B or vitamin C or vitamin D.
Ginseng, valerian.
Right, so the products we would carry all have different reasons. And that's why I say it's a bigger conversation. You can walk into a place and somebody could say, well, here, buy this, and maybe you win, maybe you lose. Or you can go in and make sure that when you have a conversation that you're talking to a product specialist or a bud tender that understands these products, and they can tell you what the pros and cons are. Not to speak, but when you do purchase. And that's typically why, like, our methodology is layering is helpful. And what I mean by that is recommending more than one product for somebody is sometimes necessary depending upon the severity of the symptoms. But for the most part, it's more about let's try one thing. Let's isolate it. Let's try one product to start. Let's see how that goes. And that's usually how we start up, try to get somebody comfortable. And then after that, you know, if it works, great. If it doesn't, then someone's not spending a ton of money to figure out if this is the right fit for them. Yeah, it's just again, the last thing that I want is somebody ever to come in and go, well, you know, I bought this somewhere, I don't know what it is. You know, that defeats the purpose, you know? So the edibles I like to start with because they're easy. Right? Like, it's a food product. Makes people comfortable. And you know, you can see them. It's a chocolate bar. It tastes delicious. These products do taste delicious. And then I like to get to flower a little bit later because flower sometimes isn't for everyone. So, but I like to introduce it. And this one particular strain I always like to introduce because it's a one-to-one product. And what that means is that this particular strain has equal amount of CBD and THC. Now, the thing about consuming flower that I wanted to point out is it's immediate. So a lot of times somebody might say, look, I never really thought about consuming cannabis or smoking cannabis, but a lot of us also didn't expect to deal with heightened anxiety, a lot of times, or depression. And a lot of times it's something that we need to address sooner than later. So inhaling will allow you within that first 5 minutes to start feeling the effects. So that's why we do it. And the other thing about flower and vaporizing is that you're getting the full spectrum of the plant. And what I mean by that is, remember I said that we know that there's over 150 cannabinoids in the cannabis plant. And on these labels, what you'll see is a number of all these different types of cannabinoids. And each one has different medical benefits to that. Can you see that? Okay, so here, like you can see this particular product, and I got to be able to read it. It has THC, it has CBD in it. It has CBG, which is good for your stomach, CBC. So it has these different cannabinoids in it. And when consumed at one time, that is the entourage effect. You get the full effect of the flower. And this can be consumed, like I said, as flower, or it can be consumed in it almost looks like a pen. Ooh, sticking to my fingers. But this is what it smells like.
Smells good.
So did we get that one on camera? Yes.
It smells good. There you go.
And one of the things that we like to do is, this almost sounds a little silly, but when we're talking to people about the medical benefits of certain strains of cannabis, the smell is, those are those terpenes, those flavonoids that you're smelling. And if you respond favorably to that, many times that's a strain that will provide that more positive experience versus something that you go, oh, it smells awful. It's interesting that that's the case, but that's how we do it.
And what you are smelling are the terpenes.
That's
in
okay.
That. So it's much like if you go for a walk in the woods and you're smelling the pine forest.
It's
and you
nice,
get that
isn't it?
invigorating feeling. That's the pinene terpene, so it gives you that lift, right? If you have a glass of orange juice in the morning, the smell of orange, that's the pinene, that's the terpene in the orange. It gives you a little bit of a zip. So sometimes the more fruity the smell, the more uplifting you're going to feel. If it's more earthy,
No, not at
piney,
all.
that's a little bit more calming and relaxing.
Have you attended one of these before? Just set me right up. Said, how do we consume these? So there's a couple of ways. Number one, no, not at all. We have certain devices that the flower can be put in, and it's like a pipe. Many people will smoke like through a pipe. Many people don't like that. We also sell them in a pre-roll form. And this is called a pre-roll. It's already rolled up for people, and that's for those that want to try the flower.
All the hard work's already done for you.
Yep. And you could smell it. This is probably a different strain. This is.
Touch it.
Sure.
That smells good too. Oh, she's hooked.
She's hooked.
It's a little like aromatherapy.
It is.
Aromatherapy for me.
It's not for everybody. That's for sure. No?
Yep, that's
Do
the
you like the smell?
terpenes
Yeah.
in it. So they're really strong and they have medical benefits. So that little terpene deck
You
that's
think
in your,
that one's
in
better.
your
So
bag.
this
so
is a California-based
These are the different terpenes. And it has where
Yes.
they're found in nature and also what the medical benefits are.
A little bit different.
So if you're looking for something that's antimicrobial or anti-stress, you want to find something that has that particular terpene in it.
The other thing is they come in these. So what we do here is this is an oil, and this is a vaporizer device. It's disposable. You don't have to charge it. There's no buttons to push, and it's virtually odorless. So these are, they're usually a bit more potent. What we do is we literally take the plant in our factory out in Douglas. We take the plant and we grind it up, and we use different solvents and sometimes no solvent, and we press the oil right out of the plant. So you can have literally the oil, just like you would take a lilac plant, right? If you were to squeeze it or any kind of flower, you'd get a little bit of that resin, that oil that would come out. Cannabis is the same. So this is another way that people like to consume where it doesn't carry as much of an odor. It's a little bit more concentrated, and rather than having to light something and put it out, they can just take one, pull off of this, and that's enough. So that's another example. It's different than the tincture because the tincture is something you could put under your tongue or in a tea. This is something that you have to inhale.
And that's an inhalant, so that will hit you pretty much immediately. And it is a concentrate, so it's a little bit stronger. And with the different, as Pete was saying, with the onset time and how long it lasts in your body, so smoking, you're going to pretty much feel that immediately. That'll last a couple of hours.
Thank you so much.
The edibles, it'll take a little bit longer for you to feel. That's why we recommend just taking a little before and waiting a good hour before you feel like you have to have more.
Thank you.
And
I
those will
think
last
so as
about
well.
4 to 6
Thank you.
hours in the body.
So that's
And
our
then the
new
tinctures,
disposable carts.
you should start feeling that within about,
Yeah,
I would say 15 to 30 minutes, sometimes up to 45. And those will last, again, up to 3 to 5 hours throughout in the body throughout the day, or when you take it. And then the topicals, I usually find relief immediately with the topicals, but it could take a good 10 minutes to set in, and those last for a couple hours as well.
So I'll tell you an interesting story about the topicals. I had, as you can imagine, I do a little computer work, and my hands were just in pain for hours. And this was when I was really getting started, and the industry was really coming around. I thought, would this really work for my hands and things like that? I became a believer instantly. Some of the topicals are almost instant. You can feel the effects. It really is pretty exciting to see how effective these are. My 95-year-old grandmother I told you about, uses topicals. My friends' parents that suffer from bad arthritis of the hands, some of this it's been outstanding. And this is all it is. It's just like any other salve. This has 250 milligrams of THC in it, but you don't feel it. You won't feel any psychoactive effects of putting this on your hands. But that's what it looks like, and it smells nice, right?
Not much at all.
No.
The topicals
Yeah.
do not cross the blood-brain barrier. So
Right.
that's why you'll never feel any psychoactive effects.
And this is the
from
topical. If
those.
you want to just smell like they're
They
not
have
planty.
patches
They're just like
that
a
are a little bit
regular
different,
lotion or
transdermal.
topical.
That you may feel some psychoactive effects, but you don't really see those too much in the dispensaries. Some have them, but I liken those to like a lidocaine patch. Like sometimes the
My
doctor
wife-
will prescribe a lidocaine patch if you
My
have
wife
like
will not touch any
yeah.
of this.
Same
any
type of
cannabis.
thing. It's a little patch.
But
it's
she
got
has
infused
tailbone
product
issues,
in it,
like, for
and it
whatever
will
reason,
go
like her
in-
lower
get into
back.
your bloodstream
And
throughout
I
the day
gave her
from
one
the
of,
time you have
like,
that
not
patch
this
on.
exact brand, but I gave her one, and now that hasn't left her bedside. Like, that is,
That's how my brother would.
I'm not sure if we have. Is that in the handbook?
In there? Yeah, and there's another sheet in there too that explains the,
Yeah. Yep.
well,
I think
and
there's
you
a
don't
couple of
feel
different
anything
handbooks
else.
in there.
But the thing about it
ours
is
has a lot
there are
of
CBD
geared more
creams
towards
and
the
salves
medical
and
information and things
THC.
like that.
And I hear probably equal amounts of success with
Oh,
either.
yep.
However, I have to tell you personally, the THC, the salves that have THC have just proven to be almost like instantaneous for me, because the CBD's got a, again, it's going after inflammation, right? So if it's in your elbows or your joints, it's got to get
Yep, so
really
that's
in
the
there.
dispensary.
But
That's the
THC,
dispensary.
like
And
it
we
can
are
sit
the,
topically,
we're
it's
the
going to give you
doctor
that just
certification
like
doctor, so
immediate,
this is us.
immediate relief. It's going after the pain, and
I
then the
just
other
wanted
piece
to
of it
say
is
thank you
what
all
are
so
your
much
sleep
for coming in
tendencies,
today.
you know?
And if
'Cause
you need to reach
that's when you
us,
just-
our
you really
contact
just wanna make
information
sure
is in the
whoever you
bags.
deal with, they can
So
talk to
feel
you
free to reach
about
out at
that.
any time.
And that's why I
we'll be
leave my
glad
card,
to
'cause
answer
I'm
any
always there,
questions.
and I'm
We'll
always
be here
happy
for a
to, like,
while.
sit down
Be
with
glad
anybody
to answer any of your
individually
questions,
and talk
or
to
if
them
you
about
reach
it.
out to us, we'll be glad to answer them through there as well.